All right, good morning, everyone joining us from different part of the world. You're welcome to another beautiful edition of our Monday Team Mental Fitness here at Adbond Harvest and Homes. And today we have an interesting topic again, and it says balancing empathy and productivity at the workplace. And the little space that we put finding harmony in the workplace. All right, so why are we looking at this topic today? We are looking at this topic because we want to talk about something that would help to improve the workplace culture. We want to foster a culture that values both empathy and productivity, leading to a more positive and effective work environment. Another reason why we are looking at the topic today is that we want to enhance employee well-being. We're looking at a topic that supports employees' mental health and well-being by promoting empathy and self-care while also maintaining productivity. And another reason why we want to talk about this topic today is that we want to help to increase efficiency and effectiveness of employees in a work environment. So let's start with this opening quote from Theodore Roosevelt. It says, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you're found in any environment at any time, people would only reckon with you when they know that you really care about them. They would only listen to you. They will be receptive to hear from you when they know that there is a deep care, about them. When you tend to offer pieces of advice, share your experiences with people, when they see that you don't really care about them, they would listen, but they would probably mostly not take, or make use of that, pieces of advice. So we want to look at something that talks about, caring about people, about employee and even employers, at the workplace. And that is what Theodore Roosevelt is saying here. All right, let's talk about some of the terms, to look at for in this training today. And we're looking at two major terms. We're talking about empathy and then productivity. And there's a word that links both of them today, which is balancing both of them in the workplace. For me to explain or drive home the point, I would like to give some other, definitions so that we can drive home, the point here. And the first one here is that we have apathy, we have sympathy, and then we have empathy. Most of the time people confuse sympathy for empathy. A lot of people don't know when we say sympathy, when we say empathy, they really can't picture what you're saying. So that's why I brought out these three words so that there is less confusion about these words. So the first thing here is apathy. And when you are apathetic about something, it means you sit on the fence, you really don't care about that thing. So when you say someone is apathetic about a particular situation, the person doesn't care, about that situation. Sympathy, on the other hand, is to feel together with someone about something. So for example, if someone loses someone, you can share in their pain and say, "Oh, so I'm sorry, about your loss." But there is a thin line between sympathy and empathy, which you will see next. To feel empathetic about something is to have an emotional investment in another person's experience and feelings. So for instance, this thing for the example of sympathy above, you can empathize with a person who sustained a loss only when you yourself have sustained a similar loss. So what are we saying in essence? So say for example, you have someone that loses, their dad or their mom. Most of the time, you can only sympathize with them if you haven't lost your dad or your mom as well, because you are not in their situation. So you can only say, "Oh, I'm so sorry about it," but you can't really share in the pain that those people are feeling, so you sympathize with them. But if you have lost your dad or your mom before, and you see someone that also loses their dad or mom, there is, a deeper level of, feeling that comes with it, which is empathy. You tend to share in their feeling. You can really, you can experience what they are feeling per time. And that makes you want to, go further to offer help, to them. And to drive home this, let me put these three terms in action. All right. So you find out someone drowning, probably, let's say, because, we drive around. Sometimes you see people, having accidents, and a number of us will just drive away, right? But let's use this example, a typical example you are at a pool party or something, and then someone is drowning, maybe someone you don't even know. An apathetic person will say, "Oh, sorry, I don't care about what is happening. If the person likes, let the person die or let the person drown or not." But someone sympathetic would say that, "Oh, so sorry, I feel so sad for you that you're drowning." But an empathetic person will go further. He won't just say sorry alone. We'll look for a way to see how we can help the person, to get out of the situation. So, this we can briefly explain, what, empathy means. Empathy is the ability to see what others are feeling, all right, and it's the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. Because if you're talking about, having to see the emotions of people and trying to see how you can come into that space to help them, you realize that, that's empathy, and not just sympathy. And that's one of the things we're looking at today at workplace, because most of the time, when we work in an environment where we have teams set up, most times when people cannot perform, sometimes we tend to blame them. We tend to not just check out why they are complaining or what is wrong with them. And then sometimes some organizations just fire without, really just checking out what is happening to that, that person. And we're trying to talk about how, we can go from just, being apathetic to being sympathetic, and then go further, by being empathetic. So it's the ability to share emotions with others, actively share emotions with others, and passively experience the feeling of others. All right, so what's the importance of empathy in a workplace? One of the first things it does is that it helps to build trust. And then there's this rapport that comes with team members. When you have team members that care about one another, that they don't just look at, what they are going to get from the organization. I'm here to work. I don't need to care about anybody. As long as I'm delivering, at my workplace, I don't need to bother about any other person. But if you move to being empathetic, most times realize that we don't just judge, people by what, they give out as results, but rather we go further to question what is happening and to see how we can help them. So it helps to build, trust and rapport in a team. Number two is that it enhances collaboration and teamwork. When you see an environment where, people are empathetic, there is teamwork and there is collaboration, because everybody feels like they are cared about. They see that, it isn't just about what to deliver, but how to deliver it, and the state of the well-being of individuals. So one of the things it does is that it helps to enhance collaboration and teamwork. Number three is that it supports employee well-being and mental health. And the topic we're talking about today is something that has to do with both the employee and the employers. And we as employers as well, we have to go further by not just thinking about what someone is set to deliver, but we need to check, what is happening to their well-being. We need to, understand what is happening at their own front, how we can help them so that, it fosters, better productivity at work. So it supports employee well-being and mental health. When you see an environment where people have empathy for one another, you see that when they have problems, they feel free to share with team members, and that way the problems are solved and it doesn't affect productivity at work. And another thing is that it fosters a positive work culture. In an environment where empathy is rampant, what you see is that people think positively about outcomes. There is no negative vibes around people there, no negative energy. Everyone is always moving to see how things can be achieved easily. All right, productivity on the other hand, what does it mean? It's about reaching your goals, through smart time use, through energy management, and through effective, resource handling. We're talking about empathy, and at the same time, we're talking about productivity. Productivity has to do about how we reach our goals at our place of work, by using our time wisely, by using our energy wisely, and by using the resources we have, we are being given wisely as well. And why is it important to be productive? Because productivity increases individuals' growth. It brings about collaboration, and it helps organizations see better outcomes. And part of the things we talk about in productivity is that, people they are focused on their goals. They stay committed to, to clear objectives, Another thing is that when you talk about productivity, you're talking about resourcefulness, making strategic use of tools, and time. Also, another thing we look at in productivity is that people support themselves for innovation and growth. And another thing is that, we look at how employee can be confident and can be motivated to achieve, their goals. And that's what productivity is talking about. All right, so there is usually this paradox, there's usually this fight between, how do we balance empathy and productivity? Some people would say that if you are too empathetic, it will affect productivity, or better still, if you are just focused on productivity, you are not focused on empathy as well, that it could affect the outcomes or the results people get in an organization. So, and that is the challenge of the balance, all right? People would say that empathy can be very time consuming, and truly, because you need to care about people, you need to be invested in their lives, right? It tends to want to consume so much from you. And I mean, that might be affecting productivity in one hand, and one of the things that we have seen that people do say as well is that too much empathy breeds lack of accountability. Like the training for today was slated for one of our team members, right? But I mean, we just have to come up on board because we're empathetic, to say that let's see how we can fix it up and then get it sorted out. But at the same time, we're looking at empathy on one side, and you're also ensuring that accountability is not left, out. And number two is that productivity requires focus and efficiency, all right? So because, you have to be so focused when you're thinking productivity. Also, you want to be efficient, at what you deliver. People say that it could affect, empathy at work. We hear something like too much productivity focus can lead, to burnout. So how do we balance these two out? How can we be empathetic in the organization and at the same time, be productivity, focused? So balancing can be challenging, but we'll see how we can make do with that. And so what are the strategies for balance? How can you actually balance empathy and productivity in the workplace? First thing here is that we have got to learn how to prioritize tasks and focus on high impact activities. One of the things that we can do, to be able to balance empathy and to balance productivity at work is to try to prioritize our task. And previously we've learned about urgency, importance, why we need to sit down and understand that there are things we need to do. There are things that are not, for example, like our organization, I would hear our CEO most of the time that let's focus on things that are, bringing up so many things for us. And those things that are not bringing in what we want, let's stem them down. So we have to learn to prioritize tasks and look at those things that are giving us the desired goals that we want, and stay at those places. And those things that are not really giving us what we want, we don't involve so much in them. And when we do that, it helps to balance empathy, because one way or the other, you are trying to look at how, the employees, can achieve whatever they need to do, focus on the task they are meant to, fulfill, and at the same time, caring about them, and at the same time, also still checking out how they can be productive at their work. Number two is that we have to use active listening and empathy in interactions. So one of the things that is a bit lacking in this dynamic work environment that we have right now is that a lot of people don't listen, and it's one of the things that affects empathy and affects productivity. Someone comes to you at work and is telling you something happened at home, this, that, and then you're not listening, but the next thing is you did not achieve the goal, so you are a failure, you are a this, you are a that. You have to go extra mile to listen to people attentively, check out what is really happening to them. All right, when you listen attentively, you know where the problem is. When you know where the problem is, you can help them to solve the problem. So the goal is not just to make people feel like they are not capable or they are inadequate. The goal is to ensure that people fulfill their goals in the right mental state. And we have to use empathy in interactions. When people give you reasons for not doing things, try to sit down, process it, and be empathetic. Don't be sympathetic and don't be apathetic. Don't say, no, it's none of my business, we are paying you, we're doing this, you just have to do it. Don't be apathetic, right? And at the same time, don't just be sympathetic, oh, sorry, and then you don't. As good environment, one of the things we learn in HR practice is that when someone is not doing so well, one of the first things you try to do is to put them in a performance improvement program. Sit them down, listen to them, know what the problem is, and then find ways, to help them solve the problem so that productivity can be enhanced. Another thing, for balance that makes, that brings about balance between empathy and productivity in an organization is practicing self-care and stress management. A good number of us don't care about ourselves. We don't take care of ourselves, and that is what enables us to, to be, worked out, and then even for you to listen to people becomes a problem. If you don't manage yourself well, if there is no proper stress management, you have to understand that exercise is good for the body. When you balance your exercise well, when you sleep well, all of these things enable you to listen to people well, and at the other hand, it helps you in being productive. So if you're supposed to sleep 7 hours a day and you're not sleeping 7 hours a day, you're sleeping 3 hours a day, it could be a big problem, that will bring about you not being able to listen to people effectively. And when you are stressed most times, it's a problem for you to even hear anyone out. And then when you are stressed, it can affect your productivity. So one of the things we need to do is to practice self-care and stress management. And number 4 is to set clear boundaries and expectations. Set clear boundaries and expectations. Most times at our places of work, one of the things we don't do is that we don't set clear boundaries. There are boundaries, within which we are meant to work. There are boundaries in which we are meant to go in dealing with our team, members. Understand the boundaries, between one and another. So, for example, we are saying you should be empathetic. It doesn't mean you should. Probably your colleague is married. You don't need to start asking about what is happening between husband and wife at home and all of that. If your colleague does not share, something deep with you, you don't have to try to pry into, their private life. You have to understand, boundaries in empathy. Even as employee to employer as well, we have to know when to come in, to step in, to help people in their thought line. And there has to be clear expectations. When there are expectations, things get to happen very fine. We often hear that one of the reasons why, people have issues in marriage is because, expectations are too high. So you have to set reasonable expectations at work. These are the goals I want to achieve. An employer as well have to have clear expectations set out for every individual and ensure that, they work within the expectations. All right. So let's look at empathy in action. What are the things we can do, examples of ways we can bring in empathy into the workplace. So first thing here is that there can be regular check-ins with team members. So one of the things we do that is common is that, when a team member is not coming to work, a good number of us don't tend to even try to check. Why is this person not available at work? What's really the problem? And one of the things we need to do for people to know that we care, and don't forget we said from the beginning, when people know that you don't care about them, they don't really care about what you know. But when people know you care about them, one of the first things they do is that they want to listen to you. And when they have problems, they want to come to you. So regular checking with team members is a way to show that you're empathetic about that person. Another one is, don't be afraid to provide feedback. Provide feedback that is constructive and supportive. I've seen team members, when they want to talk about someone, they just go head on. They don't know how to construct things in a way that the person would not feel so bad about it. I was just stepping, I was coming from a place this morning, and the woman was telling me that in schools now, they don't use grades anymore. They don't use first position, second position, third position. And I asked her why. She said, it is just a way to ensure that every student feels good about themselves, no matter the position they found themselves. Back in the days, we were always looking out for the moment to get our report sheet, because that was what actually motivated the question. I saw someone moving report sheet, and I said, back in the days, I remember anytime we get our report sheets, what we want to do is to look out for position first, second, third. That was what we were always vying for then. But she said things have changed, because we have to help, every child to make them feel their self-worth, and enable them to fulfill their goals. So when you are providing feedback to team members, it has to be constructive. You have to say it in a way that you don't downplay their self-esteem and you don't downplay their intelligence, because everybody is actually intelligent and everybody is actually, blessed. Then the next one is that from the employer's angle, we must always recognize and reward employees' effort. One of the things we say here at Adbond Harvest and Homes is that we celebrate little wins, and a simple example of that is a partner that is working with us at our newly opened African food store, and I mean, she just came up and she's trying to, put up her business. And, one of the first things she did, was to come around to see how she can share her flyers, meet with people, and then talk to people about her products so that people can start, buying from her. And the first week, what I noticed is that, she didn't make so much sales, but one of the things I said to her was that, the fact that you met people and they got your contact and you got their contact is a win. Celebrate that win. Even when no naira has come in yet, celebrate the fact that you have been able to go out, you have been able to get people, that can later come to buy from you. As well, in our sales, program here, when people come on board and they are yet to make sales, yes, we make them understand that the fact that you are talking to people are seeing your status is a win. The fact that you have moved from just not doing anything to doing something for people to be aware is a win. So on the employer's angle as well, we have to see all the little efforts people are putting in. As a team, everybody works together to achieve a goal. When we did our Green World Summit recently, we realized that the media team, the logistics, everybody came together to make it a success. So as organizations, we must always reward and recognize employees' efforts. All right, on the other hand, how do you boost productivity? First thing is time blocking and prioritization. Most of the things we do now, we have to be very careful about the way time goes. The time goes so fast. So we have to sit down, check our calendar, plan our day, put hours into what we want to do daily, so that nothing takes our time. There are no distractions that take us, off. And we have to prioritize. Okay, so, I'm supposed to go to the farm. This is what I'm supposed to do today. I'm supposed to meet some clients. You have to sit down, have a time block, and then prioritize tasks. It helps to improve productivity. Another thing is to try to minimize distractions and interruptions. I realize that these days, if you want to do anything serious, you have to put your phone aside. If you're going to use a system or read a book, you have to just swipe something off in order for you to be focused, because there are so many distractions flying around. So in order to improve productivity or boost productivity, you have to try to minimize distractions and interruptions. And number 3 is that you have to learn to take regular breaks and practicing self-care. I think I read about a woman, that had issues breaking down because she was all about work, no rest, no time to play, no time for vacation, and she thought she was being productive, but her health, was being hampered, and if there is no health, if health fails you, you can't be productive at anything. So there has to be a way to sit down and take regular breaks, practice self-care, go on vacation when there is need to go on vacation, and then know how to manage your time effectively. This will help in boosting productivity. All right, I'm wrapping up, and the thing written here is that balancing empathy and productivity is not a zero-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game. And what I'm trying to say is that, the whole idea of if you increase empathy, it will decrease productivity. If you increase productivity, no. Here we can see that there can be a balance. There can be an organization, we can have empathy, and at the same time we can think of being productive. One does not affect the other. We can bring the two to exist together and an organization, and it will help the organization move to the next level. Empathy drives sustainable productivity. When we are empathetic in an organization, what it does is that it helps to improve productivity, because employees feel, that they are cared about. That it's not just about what they are going to bring out as result, that their care is also paramount to the employers. We have learned, that anything that we need to do starts with awareness, and that's why we are bringing the awareness to you. That in an organization there can be empathy, and at the same time we can still be productive. So my final thought here is that balance requires intentionality. So we have to be intentional about being empathetic, and at the same time, looking at productivity in an organization. By prioritizing both, we can create a work environment that is supportive, that is productive, and that is successful. And we can work together to actually make this a reality in any organization. When we prioritize, both empathy and productivity, what it does is it enables, people to be supportive. You see that team members are supportive, they are productive, and at the same time, and you see success on a larger scale. So to end this training today is a closing quote by Walt Disney, and it says that the way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. The way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. And what I'm trying to say here is that we have learned that empathy, is good for us in an organization. Thinking productivity as well is good for us. So let's move beyond talking about it. Let's start doing it. Team members show empathy to team members. Employers should show empathy to, to the employees. And if you're doing all of this together, what it does is that it brings about, productivity, shared productivity, and then shared outcomes and shared results, and then we become successful. Thank you so much for your attention, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you pretty soon. If you have questions and contributions, please do well to drop them in our comment section. Thank you for joining me today. Let's stay empathetic.